Captain Vorath Kessinger stood before the bridge's main display, watching the massive alien dreadnought eclipse the stars beyond Earth's outer defense grid. The vessel stretched nearly 3 kilometers in length, its biometallic hull pulsing, with bioluminescent veins that carried some unknown energy throughout its frame. Beside him, Commander Lysander Torvik's knuckles had gone white as he gripped the tactical console. "Translation complete, Captain," announced Navigator Quinlan Vex from her station. "The transmission is clear." The voice that filled the bridge carried the weight of absolute authority, each word resonating with harmonic undertones that seemed to vibrate through the ship's hull itself. "Primitive species of Sol 3. You have attracted the attention of the Velthanor Collective. Your rapid expansion into the void has disturbed the natural order of this galaxy sector." Kessinger felt his jaw tighten. 3 years since humanity had achieved faster-than-light travel. 3 years of careful exploration, peaceful contact attempts, and meticulous colonization of only uninhabited worlds. They had been so careful, so deliberate in their approach to the cosmic stage. "You will cease all interstellar activities immediately," the voice continued. "Your species will return to your birth world and accept our oversight. Compliance ensures your survival. Resistance ensures your extinction. You have 1 rotation of your planet to surrender." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in suffocating silence. Chief Engineer Morwin Hectane's voice crackled through the comm system. "Captain, I'm reading massive energy signatures from that ship. Whatever they're packing, it's beyond anything in our databases." Kessinger turned to his communications officer. "Lieutenant Callista Nerion, open a channel to Luna Command. Patch me through to Admiral Brahm." The holographic projection of Admiral Theron Brahm materialized moments later, his weathered face grave. "I've been monitoring their transmission. Vorath, the other defense fleets are reporting similar ultimatums across the system. Sir, with respect, they're giving us 24 hours to abandon everything we've built in the last 3 years. Our colonies, our research stations, our future." "I know what they're asking," Brahm interrupted. "And I know what you're thinking. The cabinet is in emergency session as we speak, but Vorath..." The Admiral's expression hardened. "I've seen the preliminary tactical analyses. This isn't a fight we can win conventionally." Kessinger looked out at the alien vessel, its organic curves and pulsing lights alien to human aesthetic sensibilities. "Then we don't fight conventionally, sir." "What are you suggesting?" "The Prometheus Project. It's been sitting in classified storage for 2 years. If there was ever a time to authorize its deployment." Brahm's expression shifted, a mixture of horror and grim resolve flickering across his features. "The Prometheus Project, humanity's darkest innovation, born from the twisted marriage of quantum physics and military desperation. Weapons that didn't just destroy matter, but unraveled it at the subatomic level, creating cascading failure states that could consume entire star systems if left unchecked. That technology was classified as too dangerous for use against human targets," Brahm said quietly. "These aren't human targets, sir, and they're not offering us a choice." The Admiral was silent for a long moment, his eyes distant. "The cabinet will never approve it. The ethical implications alone." "Then don't ask them," Kessinger said. "Make the call, Admiral, because in 23 hours and 47 minutes they're going to start exterminating us whether we surrender or not. I can see it in their ship's positioning, their energy buildups. This isn't negotiation. It's an execution announcement." Admiral Brahm closed his eyes, and when he opened them again they burned with cold fire. "Project Prometheus is authorized. God help us all." The transmission ended, and Kessinger turned to face his crew. They were young, most of them. Volunteers who had joined the Deep Space Fleet for adventure and discovery, not to become humanity's last desperate gambit against extinction. "All hands. This is the captain," he announced over the ship's communication system. "In approximately 18 hours, we're going to show our visitors something they've never seen before. We're going to show them what happens when humanity says no." Deep within the fortified military installation on Luna's dark side, Dr. Valeria Stormwind's hands trembled as she initiated the awakening sequence for humanity's most classified weapons program. The Prometheus facility stretched down through a kilometer of solid rock, its deepest chambers containing technologies that had kept her awake for 2 years with nightmares. Authorization confirmed, she whispered to the biometric scanner. Project Prometheus, full activation protocol. The facility hummed to life around her, ancient machinery groaning as it powered systems that had remained dormant since their creation. Beside her, her assistant Dr. Calum Rask watched the readouts with barely contained terror. Doctor, the containment fields are holding, but the quantum resonance is already destabilizing local spacetime. Are you certain about this? Valeria's laugh held no humor. Certain? I'm certain that in 16 hours, every human in this system will be dead if we don't deploy these weapons. The Velthaner aren't here to conquer. They're here to sterilize. The first Prometheus torpedo emerged from its fabrication chamber, a sleek cylinder of midnight black alloy that seemed to absorb light itself. At its core, contained within 17 layers of exotic matter shielding, resided a weapon that violated several fundamental laws of physics. The torpedo didn't just carry explosives. It carried entropy itself, weaponized and directed. The warp fire payload will create a localized reality storm, Valeria explained as additional torpedoes rolled off the production line. It doesn't just destroy the target, it retroactively prevents the target from having existed in that location. The quantum backlash should, Calum interrupted. Doctor, we've never tested these at full scale. The simulation suggested that even a single torpedo could crack a moon in half, yes. Could also create a temporal paradox that unravels causality in a 10-light-year radius. Could theoretically ignite the quantum foam and turn our entire local cluster into expanding nothingness. Valeria's voice remained steady, despite the magnitude of what she was describing. But the alternative is certain extinction. Above them, throughout the Sol system, humanity's military forces were being quietly repositioned. The Velthanor had made a critical error in their ultimatum. They had assumed humanity would spend the 24 hours in deliberation and panic. Instead, Admiral Brahm had used the time to coordinate the largest military operation in human history. Captain Kessinger's ship, the UES Inexorable, had been selected as the primary delivery platform. Her sister ships, the Harbinger and the Nemesis, would provide flanking support. Together, they represented humanity's finest military technology, ships designed for exploration and defense, now converted into weapons of unprecedented destruction. Doctor, came Admiral Brahm's voice through the facility's communication system. What's our operational window? Valeria consulted her displays, watching as the Prometheus torpedoes underwent their final preparations. The weapons will be stable for approximately 6 hours once activated. After that, the containment fields will begin to degrade and will have an uncontrolled release. Understood. Captain Kessinger, you're cleared for weapons loading. May God have mercy on us all. In the depths of space, the 3 human vessels approached the loading coordinates. The Inexorable's weapons bay doors opened like the jaws of some primordial beast, receiving the 12 Prometheus torpedoes that would determine humanity's fate. Each weapon was a concentrated nightmare of exotic physics, capable of erasing not just matter but the very possibility of matter having existed. Commander Torvik watched the loading process from the bridge, his expression grim. Captain, once we fire these things, there's no going back. Even if we survive the initial deployment, the quantum aftershocks could kill us all anyway, Kessinger finished. I know, Commander, but slavery isn't survival, and I'd rather die human than live as cattle. The Velthanor dreadnought continued its patient orbit, its bioluminescent patterns pulsing in what might have been anticipation. Its commanders had no idea that the primitive species below them had just armed themselves with weapons that made their own civilization's arsenal look like children's toys. Weapons loading complete, announced Chief Hectane. All Prometheus. Torpedoes are secured and ready for deployment. Captain, these readings, I've never seen energy signatures like this. Kessinger nodded grimly. Set course for the alien vessel. It's time to show them that humanity doesn't kneel. As the three human ships began their approach, the Velthanor vessel's communications array activated once more. Primitive species, your compliance window is closing. Prepare for subjugation or face extinction. This time, it was humanity that responded with an ultimatum. Unknown vessel, you have 30 seconds to leave our system. This is your only warning. The alien ship's weapon systems began to charge, bioluminescent patterns shifting to deep crimson as it prepared to demonstrate the fate of defiant species. It would be the last mistake they ever made. The Velthanor War Chancellor Quixlothan observed the primitive vessels approaching with something resembling amusement. Three small craft, their crude metal hulls gleaming dully in the starlight, moving with the desperate courage of prey that had chosen to charge their predator rather than flee. Tactical assessment, he commanded, his six-fingered hands dancing across bio-neural interfaces that had guided his species through the conquest of 47 star systems. The lead vessel displaces approximately 1/8 our mass, reported. His weapons coordinator. Primitive fusion drives, basic energy shields, projectile weapons. Their largest munitions appear to be thermonuclear devices, barely sufficient to damage our outer hull layers. Quixlothan's thoracic air sacs vibrated with what passed for laughter among his kind. These creatures actually believe they can challenge the collective. How? Endearing. Charge the dissolution arrays. We will vaporize their ships and then proceed with the cleansing of their world. Aboard the Inexorable, Captain Kessinger watched the alien vessel's energy signatures. Spike. They're powering weapons. Range to target? 15,000 kilometers in closing, Navigator Vex reported. Optimal firing solution in 3 minutes, assuming they don't start shooting first. They will, Kessinger said quietly. Mr. Torvik, arm the Prometheus torpedoes. All 12 tubes. The bridge crew exchanged glances. 12 torpedoes, enough firepower to crack a small planet. The original mission plan had called for deploying only 3, but the readings from the alien vessel had changed everything. Its shields weren't technological, they were biological, capable of adapting and evolving in real time. Conventional weapons would be useless. Sir, Communications Officer Narration said, her voice tight. I'm detecting massive energy buildups from the alien vessel. Whatever they're preparing to do, it's going to happen soon. Distance to minimum safe firing range? Kessinger asked. 8,000 kilometers, Chief Hectane replied. But Captain, at that range, if the Prometheus weapons detonate, we'll be vaporized along with them. I'm aware of the math, Chief. Kessinger's hands remained steady on his command controls. But if we fire from a safe distance, they'll have time to adapt their defenses. We need to deliver the payload before they understand what they're facing. The Velthanor Dreadnought's weapons reached full charge, reality-warping energies building, along biocrystalline projectors that could disintegrate matter at the molecular level. Quixlothan prepared to give the order to fire. That was when the human ships did something unexpected. Instead of scattering or attempting evasive maneuvers, all 3 vessels accelerated directly toward the alien dreadnought. The Inexorable led. The charge, flanked by her sister ships, their engines burning at maximum output in what could only be described as a suicide run. Curious, Quixlothan mused. Are they attempting to ram us? Admirable courage, though ultimately futile. Their entire combined mass wouldn't penetrate our primary hull. War Chancellor, his sensor operator reported. I'm detecting unusual energy signatures from the lead vessel. The quantum resonance patterns are unlike anything in our databases. For the first time since the engagement began, Quixlothan felt something resembling concern. The collective had encountered thousands of species across the galaxy, cataloged their technologies, their weapons, their defenses. Nothing in their vast databases matched what they were seeing now. Range 2. Target, he demanded, 7,000 of their primitive distance units. Their weapon systems are powering up, but the energy signatures are completely unknown. At 6,000 kilometers, the human ships began their terminal attack run. The Inexorable's torpedo tubes opened, revealing 12 dark cylinders that seemed to bend light around them. Even through the vacuum of space, reality itself seemed to recoil from their presence. "All ships," Kessinger announced over the tactical network. "This is Inexorable. Execute attack pattern Omega. Fire all Prometheus torpedoes on my mark." The Velthanor Dreadnought's weapons finally discharged, sending beams of dissolution energy lancing through space toward the approaching human vessels. The beam struck the Harbinger first, her shields flaring and failing instantly. The ship's hull began to dissolve at the molecular level, her crew dying as their very atoms came apart. "Harbinger is gone," Torvik reported. "Nemesis is taking fire. She's breaking apart." "Mark," Kessinger said quietly. 12 Prometheus torpedoes launched from the Inexorable's tubes, their passage through space marked by visible distortions in reality itself. Behind them, the Nemesis exploded as dissolution beams found her reactor core, adding her light to the cosmic funeral pyre. The torpedoes crossed the remaining distance in seconds, their exotic matter warheads arming automatically as they approached their target. The Velthanor point defense systems opened fire, tracking the incoming projectiles with desperate precision. The first 3 torpedoes were intercepted, their exotic matter containment breached by defensive fire. The explosions that followed were unlike anything the universe had witnessed before. Small tears in reality itself, through which the raw chaos of unfiltered existence poured forth. The quantum backlash from their detonation crippled the alien ship's defensive systems. 9 Prometheus torpedoes continued their approach, and nothing in the galaxy could stop them now. The first torpedo struck the Velthanor Dreadnought amidships, and reality screamed. The Prometheus warhead didn't simply explode. It inverted the fundamental constants of physics within a localized sphere, creating a pocket of space-time where entropy flowed backward and matter forgot how to exist. The alien vessel's biometallic hull didn't melt or shatter. It simply ceased, leaving behind a perfectly spherical void that pulsed with colors that had no names in any language. War Chancellor Quixlothin watched in horror as 17 decks of his flagship vanished into quantum foam. Emergency biolights flashed throughout the remaining sections of the ship as hull breaches opened not to vacuum, but to the raw, screaming void between dimensions. "Impossible," he whispered, his species equivalent of vocal cords producing harmonics of pure terror. No primitive species could wield entropy itself as a weapon. The second torpedo struck 3 seconds later, followed by the third and fourth in rapid succession. Each detonation created another sphere of non-existence, reality wounds that spread through the dreadnought structure like a cancer of pure negation. The ship's bio-neural networks, evolved over millennia to adapt to any threat, found themselves trying to compensate for sections of the vessel that had never existed. Dr. Valeria Stormwind watched the engagement through Luna Command's tactical displays, her face illuminated by readings that defied every safety protocol she had ever learned. "The quantum cascade is beginning," she reported to Admiral Brahm. "The alien vessel's molecular cohesion is breaking down." "And the Inexorable?" the Admiral asked. Valeria's expression was grim. 5,000 kilometers from ground zero when the weapons detonated. They're in the quantum storm now." Aboard the Inexorable, Captain Kessinger felt his ship buckling around him as the Prometheus weapons' aftershocks reached them. The bridge lights flickered between normal illumination and impossible colors as local space-time became increasingly unstable. Navigator Vex's console exploded in a shower of sparks, while Chief Hectane's voice crackled over the comm system. "Captain, we're reading massive structural failures throughout the ship. The quantum radiation is breaking down our hull at the molecular level. We have maybe 10 minutes before total systems failure." "Then we make those 10 minutes count," Kessinger replied, watching as the remaining Prometheus torpedoes found their mark. The Velthanor Dreadnought was beginning to fold in on itself, its 3-kilometer length compressing as the weapons created pockets of space with different gravitational constants. The fifth torpedo created a localized time dilation field, causing the ship's forward section to age millions of years in seconds. The sixth torpedo simply erased a cubic kilometer of the vessel's core, leaving behind a wound in reality that bled impossible light. But it was the seventh torpedo that changed everything. Instead of creating another pocket of negated space, the HFY seventh torpedo's detonation triggered something unprecedented. The exotic matter warhead's collapse created what Dr. Stormwind would later classify as a causal inversion cascade, a phenomenon where cause and effect became temporarily reversed within a localized area. The result was that the Velthanor dreadnought began to experience its own destruction before the weapons that would cause it had been fired. War Chancellor Quixlothan found himself watching his ship's hull plates scatter into the void while simultaneously feeling the impacts of weapons that existed in his future. His bio-neural interface systems showed him tactical data from battles that hadn't happened yet, including the horrifying realization that every single one of the collective's standard countermeasures would prove completely useless against these impossible weapons. "Emergency transmission to the Collective Council," he ordered, his voice distorting as the ship's communication systems tried to function in an environment where time flowed in multiple directions simultaneously. "Priority Alpha Omega. The humans, they've weaponized causality itself. Request immediate fleet-scale response." The 8th and 9th torpedoes detonated simultaneously, creating a resonance cascade that spread through the alien vessel's quantum-stabilized hull. The ship's bioluminescent patterns, which had pulsed with steady rhythm for 3 centuries, began strobing in chaotic patterns as the vessel's nervous system tried to process damage that existed in past, present, and future simultaneously. Commander Torvik, his station sparking with quantum discharge, managed to maintain tactical sensors long enough to witness the final phase of the attack. "Captain, the alien vessel's power core is destabilizing. I'm reading energy signatures that—" He paused, checking his instruments in disbelief. "Sir, that ship is generating more power than our entire star system produces, and it's all being contained in an increasingly unstable quantum matrix." "The 10th torpedo?" Kessinger asked. "Impact in 15 seconds. Sir, if that vessel's power core goes critical while the quantum fields are destabilized, the explosion will be visible from the next galaxy," Kessinger finished. "I know, Commander, but there's nowhere to run now." The 10th Prometheus torpedo struck the Velthanor dreadnought's power core section, and the universe held its breath. For one perfect moment, everything stopped. The quantum storms ceased their howling. The reality distortions froze in place, and even the light itself seemed to pause in its eternal journey through the void. Then the Velthanor power core exploded, and with it, 3 million years of accumulated stellar energy was released in a single, reality-shattering instant. The explosion didn't just destroy the alien dreadnought. It erased it so completely that the quantum vacuum itself forgot the ship had ever existed. The blast wave, propagating through normal space and 11 different dimensional substrates simultaneously, created a phenomenon that would puzzle astrophysicists for centuries to come. Where the Velthanor vessel had been, now existed a perfect sphere of absolute nothingness. Not vacuum, not even space itself, but a bubble of pure negation that would persist for thousands of years as a monument to the day humanity said no to extinction. The inexorable tumbled through the expanding quantum maelstrom, her hull plates glowing white-hot from exotic radiation exposure. Captain Kessinger dragged himself to his feet as the ship's artificial gravity failed and restored itself in chaotic cycles, each fluctuation caused by the breakdown of local physics following the Prometheus detonations. "Damage report," he called out, though his voice seemed to echo from several different directions as sound waves navigated pockets of space where acoustics had become non-linear. Chief Hectane's response came through static-filled speakers. "Captain, we've lost main power, backup power, and 3 systems I can't even identify anymore. The quantum radiation has rewritten half our ship's molecular structure. We're essentially flying in a vessel that's only partially composed of matter as we understand it. Navigator Vex, blood trickling from her nose due to dimensional flux exposure, managed to access her console. "Sir, I'm reading massive spatial distortions throughout the engagement zone. The area where the alien ship was destroyed, it's not empty space anymore. It's not space at all." Through the bridge's main viewer, they could see the aftermath of humanity's most desperate gamble. Where the Velthanor dreadnought had once dominated the sky, now existed something that hurt to look at directly. A perfectly spherical region of non-existence that seemed to bend light, time, and thought itself around its perimeter. The quantum graveyard, Kessinger whispered, borrowing a term from Dr. Stormwind's theoretical papers. A pocket of space where the laws of physics have been permanently altered. But even as they observed the immediate aftermath of their victory, long range, sensors began detecting new threats. The Inexorable's damaged communication array crackled to life with transmissions from deep space. The automated distress beacon that the dying Velthanor vessel had transmitted before its annihilation. "Captain," Communications Officer Narration reported, her voice tight with exhaustion and terror. "I'm picking up response signals, multiple ships approaching from everywhere. It looks like the entire Velthanar collective is converging on our position." Admiral Brahm's voice reached them through the quantum interference, transmitted from Luna Command. "Inexorable, we're reading your telemetry. The Prometheus weapons worked beyond our most optimistic projections, but we're also detecting at least 300 alien vessels approaching Sol system from multiple vectors. ETA approximately 6 hours. Kessinger felt the weight of command settle on his shoulders like a shroud. They had won the battle, but in doing so, had invited a war that humanity could not possibly survive. The Velthanor Collective, faced with the loss of one of their primary war vessels, and the revelation that a primitive species possessed weapons of mass extinction, would respond with overwhelming force. "Sir," Torvik said quietly, "there's something else. Dr. Stormwind is transmitting tactical data about the quantum graveyard. Apparently, the region where the alien ship was destroyed is growing. The spherical zone of negated space was indeed expanding, though slowly. Each minute that passed saw the boundary of non-existence creep outward by several meters, consuming debris, radiation, and eventually, space itself. At its current rate of expansion, it would remain a localized phenomenon for centuries. But the implications were terrifying. We've created a wound in reality," Kessinger realized, "and now we have to live with the consequences." Dr. Stormwind's voice joined the communication channel from Luna Command. "Captain, the quantum cascade is stabilizing, but I'm reading some unusual signatures from the expansion zone. It's almost as if the negated space is trying to communicate." The bridge crew exchanged glances. "Communicate?" Kessinger asked. "The quantum fluctuations at the boundary aren't random. There's a pattern, a rhythm. Captain, I think the alien ship's destruction created something unprecedented, a localized zone where consciousness itself has been quantized and preserved in the quantum foam." The implications hit Kessinger like a physical blow. "You're saying that the crew of that ship, they're still alive in there? Not alive, not dead. They exist in a state of quantum superposition, experiencing every possible outcome of their destruction simultaneously, and Captain, they're trying to warn us." Through the ship's damaged speakers, a new sound began to emerge, not the harmonious tones of the Velthanor's original ultimatum, but something fragmented, desperate, and utterly alien. The quantum echoes of War Chancellor Quixelathan's consciousness, trapped in the moment of his ship's annihilation, began to speak. "Primitive species, you do not understand what you have done. The collective, they will not merely seek conquest now, you have shown them. Extinction weapons. They will respond with their own." The transmission dissolved into quantum static, but its message was clear. The approaching collective fleet wouldn't be carrying standard weapons of conquest. They would be armed with their own version of extinction-level armaments, devices capable of sterilizing entire star systems. Admiral Brahm's voice cut through the static. All vessels, this is Luna Command. Begin immediate evacuation of all civilian populations to the deep bunkers. Military personnel, prepare for Operation Lazarus. Kessinger's blood ran cold. Operation Lazarus, the plan to evacuate Earth entirely, loading the entire human population onto generation ships and fleeing into the deep void. It was humanity's ultimate contingency plan, designed for the scenario where Earth itself became uninhabitable. Admiral, Kessinger said, how long do we have? Based on current approach vectors, approximately 5 hours before the first collective. Ships reach engagement range. Captain, I need you to get the Inexorable back to Luna Command. Dr. Stormwind has been working on something, a way to weaponize the quantum graveyard itself. As the damaged vessel limped toward Luna, Kessinger stared out at the expanding sphere of nothingness that had once been humanity's enemy. They had won their first battle by becoming something monstrous, by wielding weapons that violated the fundamental structure of reality itself. Now, as 300 alien vessels approached with their own extinction weapons, humanity faced a terrible choice: become monsters capable of destroying entire civilizations, or face extinction as a species. The quantum graveyard pulsed with impossible light, and in its depths, the consciousness of a dead alien warned them of horrors yet to come. Dr. Valeria Stormwind stood in the deepest chamber of the Prometheus facility, surrounded by machinery that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions. Simultaneously, the quantum graveyard's expansion had provided her with unprecedented data about weaponized entropy, and the implications were both terrifying and magnificent. The collective fleet is 4 hours out, Admiral Brahm announced through the facility's speakers. Doctor, please tell me you have something that can stop 300 ships armed with extinction weapons. Valeria's laugh held a note of madness. Stop them? Admiral, I can do something far more comprehensive. The quantum graveyard isn't just a wound in reality. It's a gateway, and I've learned how to open it. She gestured toward a new device that defied description, a crystalline structure that seemed to fold space around itself, containing energies that made the original Prometheus torpedoes look like children's fireworks. I call it the Lazarus engine. It doesn't just create localized zones of non-existence. It creates permanent portals to the space between dimensions, where the fundamental forces of creation and destruction exist in perfect balance. Captain Kessinger's battered form appeared on the facility's communication screen as the Inexorable approached Luna. Doctor, are you saying you can open doorways to what exactly? To the realm where possibilities are born, Captain, where the quantum foam itself originates. If we can breach the barrier between our reality and that primordial chaos, we can unleash forces that predate the universe itself. Admiral Brahm's expression was grim. And the consequences? Unknown. We might destroy the entire local galaxy cluster. We might create new forms of physics that render organic life impossible. Or we might transcend into something beyond current human understanding. Valeria's eyes gleamed with the fervor of someone who had stared too long into the abyss of absolute knowledge. But the alternative is certain extinction at the hands of the collective. The facility's long-range sensors detected the approaching alien fleet, 300 vessels of varying sizes, from destroyer-class ships to massive world killers that dwarfed anything humanity had ever conceived. Each ship pulsed with the same bioluminescent patterns as the original dreadnought, but these patterns were different, deeper, more aggressive, tinged with the crimson of war and the promise of total annihilation. Collective transmission incoming, Communications Officer Narration reported from the Inexorable. They're broadcasting on all frequencies. The voice that filled the command center was different from War Chancellor Quixlathan's measured tones. This was the sound of an entire civilization's rage, harmonized into a single, overwhelming declaration. Species of Soul 3. You have committed an act of cosmic horror. You have weaponized the fundamental forces of existence itself, creating wounds in reality that threaten the stability of this entire galaxy sector. For this crime against the natural order, your species is hereby sentenced to complete elimination. Not conquest, not subjugation. Elimination. The transmission continued, revealing the true scope of the approaching threat. Our extinction fleet carries void seeders, weapons that will convert your star into a black hole, consuming your entire system. We carry life eaters, devices that will sterilize every planet within 50 light years of your position. We carry reality anchors, machines that will lock your local space-time into a permanent stasis field, preserving your final moments of terror for eternity. As the alien fleet drew closer, Valeria activated the Lazarus engine. The crystalline device began to resonate with harmonics that existed in 17 different dimensions simultaneously, creating standing waves in the quantum foam that rippled outward from Luna's surface. "The portal is opening," she announced, watching as reality itself began to part like a curtain. Through the growing rift, they could see the space between spaces, a realm of pure potential where unborn stars danced with dying galaxies, where time flowed in all directions at once, where the raw materials of existence waited to be shaped by conscious will. Captain Kessinger watched the approaching alien fleet through the Inexorable's damaged sensors. "Doctor, once you open that portal, fully will we still be human?" "I don't know," Valeria admitted. "But whatever we become, it will be by our own choice, not at the whim of cosmic tyrants who think they can dictate the fate of species they've never bothered to understand." The collective fleet reached the outer edge of the Sol system, their void seeders beginning to charge. The lead vessel, a biomechanical cathedral of destruction 3 times larger than the original dreadnought, began transmitting targeting data to the rest of the fleet. "All ships," came the collective command. "Begin Phase 1 of system sterilization. Convert the outer gas giants to expand the kill zone. Phase 2 will target the inner planets. Phase 3 will seed the star itself." The first void seeder fired, its beam lancing toward Jupiter with the intent of collapsing the gas giant into a micro-black hole that would consume everything in its vicinity. The beam never reached its target. Instead, it struck the expanding edge of the Lazarus portal and simply stopped. Not reflected, not absorbed. Stopped as if the concept of forward motion had temporarily ceased to exist in that region of space. "Portal breach at 90%, Valeria announced. "All personnel prepare for dimensional transition." Through the growing rift between realities, something was coming through. Not invasion, not conquest, evolution. The raw forces of creation, itself drawn by humanity's desperate act of cosmic defiance, began to pour through the portal and into normal space. The collective fleet, faced with something beyond their comprehension or control, began to experience what their own sensors could only classify as impossible phenomena. Ships found themselves existing in multiple locations simultaneously. Crews discovered that their thoughts were becoming reality. Weapon systems began to exhibit consciousness of their own. Humanity stood at the threshold of transformation into something unprecedented in the galaxy's history. Creatures that could reshape reality through sheer force of will. Beings that existed partially in normal space and partially in the realm of pure potential. The collective had demanded surrender. Instead, they had received an invitation to witness the birth of a new form of existence entirely. The Lazarus portal tore reality open like a wound in the flesh of the universe, and through it came the raw essence of creation itself. Captain Kessinger felt his consciousness expand beyond the confines of his physical form as quantum energies swept through the Sol system, rewriting the fundamental laws of physics in their wake. The collective extinction fleet, caught in the HFY expanding wave of transcendence, began to experience something their billion-year-old civilization had never encountered: forced evolution beyond their comprehension. Their bioships, designed to adapt to any threat, found themselves trying to adapt to the concept of adaptation itself, creating recursive loops that shattered their neural networks. "Status report," Admiral Brahm called from Luna Command, though his voice now carried harmonics that suggested he was simultaneously speaking from multiple dimensions. Dr. Valeria Stormwind, her form now partially composed of living light and crystallized thought, responded with perfect clarity. The portal is fully stabilized. Humanity is undergoing species-wide apotheosis. We are becoming something that exists beyond the traditional constraints of matter and energy. Through the expanding zone of transformation, the human fleet began to change. The Inexorable's damaged hull reconstituted itself from pure quantum foam, her metal plates becoming living extensions of her crew's collective will. Captain Kessinger found that he could perceive every molecule of his ship, every quantum fluctuation in the surrounding space, every thought and intention of the approaching collective fleet. "We are no longer merely human," he announced, his voice now carrying the weight of cosmic authority. "We are something new, something that the universe has been waiting to create." The collective flagship, the massive bio-cathedral nexus of eternal dominion, attempted to fire its reality anchors, weapons designed to lock space-time into permanent stasis. The beams lanced out toward Earth, intending to freeze the planet and its inhabitants in a moment of eternal suffering. Instead, the beams struck the expanding field of human consciousness and were transformed into something entirely different. Where they had intended to create stasis, they instead created pockets of accelerated time, where human thoughts could process information at near infinite speeds. Where they had intended to cause suffering, they instead provided humanity with the temporal resources needed to complete their transformation. Fleet Commander Vel Thanos, leader of the Extinction Fleet, watched in growing horror as his most powerful weapons were not just ineffective, but actively beneficial to his enemies. "Impossible," he transmitted to his subordinates. "These creatures are using our own weapons to enhance their evolution." The truth struck him like a physical blow. Humanity wasn't just defending itself. It was using the collective's attack as raw material for its ascension to a higher form of existence. On Earth, every human being was experiencing the transformation simultaneously. Children in schools found that they could reshape matter with their thoughts. Scientists discovered that they could perceive the quantum underpinnings of reality directly. Artists began creating works that existed in multiple dimensions at once, visible to viewers across the galaxy. "The collective is attempting to withdraw," Navigator Vex reported, though she was no longer speaking from the Inexorable's bridge. Her consciousness now existed as a living constellation of information that spanned the entire Sol system. "Their ships are trying to retreat beyond the portal's influence." "No," Captain Kessinger replied, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had become a force of nature. "They came here demanding our surrender. They threatened to exterminate us for refusing to kneel. Now they will witness what happens when humanity truly refuses to be caged." The transformed human fleet began to move, no longer bound by conventional propulsion. They traveled by reshaping space itself, folding distances that should have taken hours into mere moments. The Inexorable, now more concept than ship, appeared simultaneously beside every collective vessel. "Attention, Velthanor Collective," Kessinger broadcast across all frequencies, his words carrying power that rewrote the quantum foam itself. "You came to our system with weapons of extinction. You threatened to sterilize 50 light-years of space to eliminate us. You spoke of converting our star into a black hole, of preserving our terror for eternity." The collective fleet found their ship's systems responding to human thought, rather than their own commands. Weapon systems powered down not because they had been destroyed, but because the transformed humans had convinced the weapons that violence was unnecessary. "We are not going to destroy you," Kessinger continued, his consciousness now vast enough to encompass the thoughts and fears of every collective crew member. "Destruction is what you brought to us. Instead, we offer you something your civilization has forgotten, the opportunity to grow." Dr. Stormwind, her awareness now spanning multiple galaxies simultaneously, began the final phase of humanity's gift to the universe. Through the Lazarus portal, she reached into the realm of pure potential and began drawing forth new forms of existence, not weapons, but tools of creation that could transform any species willing to accept change. "Behold," she announced, her voice carrying across the galaxy, "the end of the age of conquest and the beginning of the age of evolution." The quantum energies spreading from the Sol system began to affect every world the collective had conquered. On planets where species had been enslaved for millennia, the transformation energy broke their chains and offered them the same choice humanity had made: evolve or remain static. Across the galaxy, the collective's empire began to crumble not through war, but through voluntary ascension. Species after species chose to transform themselves into something greater, abandoning the rigid hierarchies of conquest in favor of collaborative evolution. Fleet Commander Velthanos, watching his entire civilization undergo voluntary metamorphosis, finally understood what the humans had done. They hadn't simply refused to surrender. They had made surrender itself obsolete by creating a universe where cooperation was more powerful than domination. "What have you become?" he transmitted to the human fleet. Captain Kessinger's response carried the warmth of infinite possibility. "We have become what we always were, a species that refuses to accept limitations. You demanded our surrender. We gave you something better. We gave you the chance to become worthy of the stars." The portal began to stabilize, not closing, but becoming a permanent gateway between the realm of what is and the realm of what could be. Humanity, now existing as beings of pure conscious will backed by the fundamental forces of creation, took their place as gardeners of galactic evolution. The collective fleet, their crews undergoing willing transformation, became the first alien species to join humanity's growing federation of evolved consciousness. Together, they began the work of offering the same choice to every sentient species in the galaxy: remain bound by the limitations of matter and hierarchy, or evolve into something capable of reshaping reality through collaborative will. In the depths of space, the quantum graveyard where the first collective ship had been destroyed began to sing, not with the screams of the dead, but with the harmonies of consciousness that had transcended death itself. War Chancellor Quixlathan's quantized awareness, freed from the prison of linear existence, became the first to welcome the transformed collective crews into their new state of being. The age of conquest was over. The age of infinite possibility had begun, and at its center, humanity stood not as conquerors but as teachers, showing the galaxy that the choice between surrender and extinction was a false dichotomy. There was always a third option: transformation into something so magnificent that the old conflicts became meaningless. They had asked for surrender. Humanity had given them something far more valuable. They had given them apotheosis. In the expanding light of conscious evolution, the stars themselves began to sing of the day when one small species had refused to kneel, and in their defiance, had offered the entire galaxy the gift of transcendence. The war was over. The real adventure was just beginning.